Hi everyone, and welcome to our video today on standardized testing for college applications. Today we're just going to be going over what all those acronyms are that you might hear about, such as the SAT, the ACT, and the PSAT. So for those of you who are looking into taking these exams or are working on your college applications but have some questions, this video should hopefully clear some of that up. And then if you have any further questions, you can feel free to reach out to us and we can work with you one-on-one. Now, before we get started into the actual content for today, just a quick introduction to CollegeConnect Tempe. So we are your hub for advising and help with planning for anything after high school. That's a pretty big umbrella because it can include anything from four-year universities to two-year community college programs, as well as trade school or looking for a career after high school. But because of that, there are a lot of things that we can help with. This can include FAFSA application, general applications, personal statements, career exploration, and job and internship searching. If you're looking for support in any of these topics, there are three main places where you can find us. First, if you go to school in the Tempe Union High School District, we are actually located at your high schools during the school day, typically in your counselor's office. So if that would be the best option for you, you can ask your counselor or even one of your teachers to look for your CollegeConnect advisor. Now, if that doesn't work for you, maybe the schedule doesn't work or you don't go to one of the schools in the district, we are also available in person at the Tempe Public Library, where you can schedule an appointment online to meet with us here. Now, if neither of those work, either based on the fact that your schedule doesn't work, or maybe you don't go to school in the area, we actually do offer online and virtual options. So again, you'll just navigate to the link that I'll give you in a little bit, and you can go ahead and set up a one-on-one appointment with one of our advisors here at CollegeConnect. So if you feel like this might be a good option for you, for any of these types of appointments, you can go ahead and navigate to tempe.gov/collegeconnect, and you can schedule an appointment with any of our advisors. If you have any questions about today's workshop, my name is Sarabi, and you can look for me in your dropdown. But if not, you can meet with any of our advisors if you have questions about testing or any other, college or post-high school plans. All right, so moving into our agenda for today, we're going to be going over the types of tests that college admissions look at, what they are, so what the SAT is, the ACT, and the PSAT is. We're going to go over some study resources as well as a timeline, and then we'll just end with giving you, again, that link to schedule your one-on-one appointment if you're interested. All right, so to begin, when you're applying to your colleges and your scholarships, the application can look pretty similar. These applications typically ask for your GPA as well as your transcript. So they want to see if you're taking rigorous courses and how well you're doing in them. They will usually ask for extracurriculars and leadership. So they want to see what you're doing outside of school, as well as seeing what initiatives you take. So this is a good place to include clubs, jobs, and any leadership roles in those. Now, many colleges and scholarship applications will also ask for a personal essay. So this is typically about 1 to 2 pages describing an important experience in your life, as well as how you learned from it. We actually have a video on how to write your personal essay if you would be interested in doing that in our playlist. Now, one of the other parts of your application is your test scores, which is that SAT and ACT score. So one thing I wanted to point out with this is that especially after the pandemic, the importance of test scores have been decreasing because a lot of students haven't been able to take them. So what this means is that some programs are test optional, which means you can submit your scores, but you don't have to. If you're put into this situation, think about if your score will really help your application. So for example, if you have a low GPA, it might be helpful to include that test score. But if you have low test scores, but the rest of your application is pretty solid, you may not need to include them. This is something that can be tricky for some people, and if you want a third-party opinion, that's a good time to talk to a counselor or an advisor here to see which option would make the most sense for you. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about college applications in the future, but something that can be really helpful out of these standardized exams are scholarships. So if you've heard of the PSAT, it is the preliminary SAT, which essentially means that it's a shortened version of the SAT. Now, the PSAT isn't used in any college applications, but it is actually used to win scholarships. And the biggest one out of these is the National Merit Scholarship. So Everyone typically takes their PSAT in their junior year of high school. It is usually offered through your school either in October or November and sometimes in the spring as well. You can only take it once. As a junior, you'll take the exam, and the top 16,000 scorers become semifinalists for the scholarship automatically after taking the exam. So this means that if you become a semifinalist, you're actually in the top 1% of scorers, which is amazing. Um, Now, if you do become a semifinalist, you will find out from your counselor and or the National Merits Program will contact you. And after doing this, you will submit an application to become a finalist. There's a certain list of eligibility criteria you need to meet, and you will also submit an additional application that has that personal statement, like we discussed, as well as some other factors such as those extracurriculars and your GPA. Now, once you become a finalist, which out of our 16,000 semifinalists, 15,000 become finalists. So it is definitely to your advantage to apply if you do become a semifinalist. After submitting that finalist application, you can become eligible for the actual scholarship in which you would become the scholar. There are three main types of scholarships. You have the actual National Merit Scholarship, and then you also have corporate scholarships and then college scholarships. So National Merit gives out $2,500 scholarships, but if you have a parent that works at an associated corporation, you can be eligible for a corporate scholarship, which may be more or less than that 2,500. And then on top of that, we also have college scholarships. So there are many schools, especially our in-state schools such as ASU and U of A, that are associated with National Merit and will give you higher scholarships for actually just being a semifinalist. So just be aware that just by taking the exam and doing well, even if you don't become a scholar, just by being a semifinalist, you're putting yourself in a better position to pay for college. ASU and U of A are some examples that I gave you, but just know that there's a very thorough list. And if you are looking at some out of state universities as well, and you're studying for the National Merit Scholarship or the PSAT, definitely go check out that list to see if your colleges of interest are in that list, because it can definitely help you. Now, National Merit is the only scholarship that you can get from taking the PSAT, but there are some other pathways for you that I wanted you to be aware of. One of those pathways is the commended scholars. So this is our top two-thirds of scorers. That's typically around 43,000 students or 44,000 students that end up becoming a commended scholar. So while you won't get any money for this straight from National Merit, some schools will offer you higher scholarships, and it's also really good to put on your resume if you're applying for internships or anything else. Now, aside from Commended Scholar, another important PSAT pathway is the Hispanic Recognition Program, which recognizes approximately 5,000 Hispanic or Latino juniors based on their scores. In order to qualify for this, they identify Hispanic and Latino students as one-fourth Hispanic or Latino, and you also need to have a 3.5 GPA. Now, like I mentioned, there is no monetary award from National Merit. However, you can get scholarships from schools for being in this program. And a great example of that for our in-state students is the University of Arizona. So again, I really just recommend trying your best on this test because you could be winning scholarships just by taking the exam and not even doing any extra work for it. Now, I've introduced you to the PSAT, which is our middle column here, but we have two exams that you've probably heard of a little bit more, the SAT and the ACT. So if you are going to walk away with one piece of information or one slide, I would recommend it being this one. If you'd like to screenshot it, go ahead. But this is a summary of each of our exams and what they have in them. So both the SAT and PSAT have our reading, writing, math no calculator section, and math calculator section. The SAT is a little bit longer, so it's 3 hours and 15 minutes and scored out of 1600. The PSAT, since it's shorter, is scored out of 1520 and takes 2 hours and 45 minutes. Keep in mind there are also breaks during the exam that can change the amount of time for your exam. Looking at the SAT, it is typically a $55 registration fee, and this doesn't usually happen through your high school. You have to register on your own. So if you're looking into taking the SAT but are a little bit confused on registration, this is again a good point to meet with a counselor or advisor. Your PSAT, you may not have to pay based on your school, but it is usually offered in your junior year. Keep in mind that some schools will offer it before as well, and I would recommend taking it for practice, but only your junior year score will count. Now looking at the ACT, you also have 4 sections. You have the reading section, the writing section, you have a math that allows a calculator portion, and then you actually also have a science portion in your ACT. The ACT also offers an optional essay section. The rest of the exam is multiple choice, but the essay is handwritten. The ACT is scored out of 36, and it is a little shorter because it is 2 hours and 55 minutes. If you're taking the exam without the essay, it's $63, but with the essay, it'll be $88. The ACT is also often offered to high school juniors, but this is not always the case. If your school doesn't offer it, you actually can independently register for it as well in the same way that you would for an SAT. So that's a summary of our exams. The SAT is a little bit slower paced in that you get a little bit more time per section while the ACT is faster. So if you're considering the exams to take, my recommendation would be to take a diagnostic exam for each one and see which one you're more comfortable with. So even if you may do better on the SAT, if you felt more comfortable with the topics on the ACT, you may want to take that into consideration and just focus on one to study. Now, you can see that there are some costs associated with taking the exam, but I want all of you to know that there are options available if you feel like that may be a barrier for you to taking the exam. So first, both the College Board and the ACT, the College Board is what runs the SAT program, they offer fee waivers for your exams. So if you feel like you are in a situation where you may need some financial support to take those exams, reach out to your counselor and they will work with you to get that fee waiver submitted. Alternatively, for those of you who live in the city of Tempe, we actually have our Jerry Brock Scholarship for students with financial need, and that money can be put towards anything academically related. So if you are considering taking the exams, but there is a financial barrier to you, you can meet with a CollegeConnect advisor and we can help you fill out the form for the Jerry Brock Scholarship. And we may be able to help you cover the cost of taking the exam. All right, so now moving on to what is on the exam. Both the SAT and the ACT are very similar, so the content is also going to be similar when you're studying. The first section is about reading comprehension, in which they'll give you a passage and you'll answer around 10 questions for each one about the theme, the characters, etc. The English or writing section is about grammar conventions, so you will again get a passage and you will answer questions about grammar and spelling. In the math, either no calculator or calculator portion for the SAT and just the math section on the ACT. The topics that's going to be on there includes arithmetic, algebra 1 and 2, geometry, trigonometry, and probability. Now, the goal is that most students would have taken math classes related to these topics by the point that they take the exam, but I would recommend taking a practice exam and seeing if there are any topics that you are unfamiliar with. And that would be a good time to talk to a math teacher or even one of the advisors here to do some more practice if you're struggling on any topics. Now, for the science section on the ACT, it actually looks pretty similar to that initial reading section, in which you will get a passage and answer some questions. These are studying your critical thinking skills, and while you might be intimidated by the idea of science, it's actually just introductory concepts. So it can be helpful to review these, but don't feel like you have to know everything before you take the exam. All right, so now that we've talked about what they are, you might be interested in taking them, but don't know where to start with studying. So I've listed some study resources in order to prepare for them. My favorite by far is Khan Academy because it offers free practice tests that are timed and graded for you. This is an online website that also offers some support in other classes as well if you're interested, but they have, I believe, 8 SAT practice exams for you to use. If you're studying for the PSAT, you might find that it's hard to find PSAT practice exams, and that's because the PSAT is a shortened version of the SAT. So by studying for the SAT, you study for the PSAT. So my best recommendation would be to just take SAT exams to practice. Just keep in mind if you use Khan Academy, those exams are done on your computer, but your actual exam will be in person on a piece of paper. So just keep that in mind while you're studying that your test conditions might look a little different. Now, for those of you who might want some more support in actual content and how to approach different questions, I would recommend looking at some textbooks. 3 of the pretty big brands are Barron's, Kaplan, and Princeton Review. You can find all of these on Amazon's, and I would recommend also looking in your library. But the thing is, if you're looking to buy them, they can be costly because they're usually $30 or more. However, if you realize that there are very specific concepts that you're struggling with, I recommend using a textbook because they'll go over how to approach those concepts and give you practice problems on that specific section. But overall, my biggest recommendation, and you might have realized this by now, is you just need to practice. While it can be important to do content review, by doing more and more practice tests, you're going to get really familiar with how the exam looks, and that way you'll be better prepared for your actual test day. So, this is just a general timeline of what I would recommend if you are looking at taking at these exams. But keep in mind that it can look for different for every person, especially if you're looking at some early decision programs or some specialized programs. So in general, I would recommend following this, but if you feel like you might have a more specific case, I would be more than happy to meet with you or another advisor could meet with you to talk about how we can make sure that you're on track for any earlier deadline. So we're going to start with your junior year. At the beginning of your junior year, I would recommend preparing for the PSAT throughout summer in August and September. Schools typically offer the PSAT in the October of your junior year, so you'll take the exam and then you will hear back within a couple weeks or so. So keep in mind if you do become a semifinalist for the PSAT, you'll also have that application running in the background of this timeline. For those of you who want to take the SAT and ACT, you would go ahead and start studying over winter break and during your second semester. Your ACT is typically offered in the junior year of your second semester if your school does offer it. And then SATs, I would recommend taking perhaps over the summer. Now, keep in mind with the SAT and ACT, you can actually take these more than once. So if your first score is a little bit lower than you were hoping for, I would recommend registering to take it again either in the late summer or early of your senior year. Now, I really want to stress that you want to take it earlier just because that way you can have your scores ready for your deadlines and your applications that might be due starting November and December. So in general, you want to take your first exam of your SAT and ACT late junior year or during summer, and then have room for that second exam in early senior year. After that, you're all set with testing and you just have to work on your applications. You'll go ahead and submit your scores to the colleges that you're applying to, either unofficially or officially. And if you have any questions about those, it's going to be on a case by cases with your colleges. All right, so we've come up to the end of our video for today, but again, big things to take away. There are three main tests, the SAT, ACT, and PSAT. PSAT is for scholarships, ACT is usually offered at schools, and SAT is individual registration. Best way to study for these is just by practice. If you have any other questions, you should be able to scan this QR code to set up an advising appointment. Alternatively, you can go to the link that we gave you earlier, which was tempe.gov/CollegeConnect and schedule an appointment with an advisor. If you'd like to meet with me because you have questions specific about this video, my name is Sarabi, but any other advisors can also help you. So again, don't hesitate to reach out and we will end with that today. So thank you and have a great day.